So the age-old question, right? What is Music Mondays? So for this, we're gonna really kind of dive deep, but not too deep, right? Um, so starting from our bio, what is Music Mondays, right? 24/7 independent underground media. For the underground, by the underground. So many of you know that I've been in the underground space for quite a while. So we're going to be talking about how I got my start in the space. We're going to be talking about what exactly Music Monday's mission is. And we're going to be talking about a couple of other really important things. So, what exactly is Music Mondays, right? So to answer that question, let's kind of talk about the story of Zomb Slays. So when it comes to how I started out in the scene, um, I didn't really start out as a manager or a writer or anything like that. That wasn't really like my ultimate goal whatsoever at all. Um, you know, things kind of popped off relatively quickly. So long story short, I started officially producing music in 2017, but I had been a super underground fan since like 2013. Some really early Bone stuff. Of course, the Young Lean era. A lot of that stuff was very important to me. But then, I started getting into that like angsty kind of like early 20s era because like I'm 26 now, but this was probably like when I was like 18 or 19. I was getting into that like angsty kind of like just like weird era in your life, right? And I needed an outlet, right? I didn't draw. I wasn't into sports. I didn't like I played video games, but that wasn't like productive to me. Up until like later on. So music was the thing that kind of like made sense to me because I could like show it off and I could be like, yeah, like I can like put this out into the world and feel like, it's there. So I started producing. And then, long story short, again, I kind of thought, okay, how the fuck do I start producing music? Or no, how do I start actually promoting my music? Because when you're starting out, it's like, okay, like you can make a Twitter account, you can make your Facebook account, you can do whatever you want to do, right? And it's like, okay, where do I go from here? Because it's like you want to show people your music, right? Do you kind of like cold call everybody and just everybody, just start DMing people? No. So what my solution was, and I started keyword searching on everything, Twitter, Instagram, and I was like underground music, music promotion, blah 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 blah, things like that, right? And I stumbled upon one of the brands, the very first brand I built, UVC, Underground Vampire Club. And when UVC and I connected, it was being ran by one person, and they had like one or two staff members, maybe, but they were only like 500 deep. Fast forward probably 3 years or so, till 2020, the platform had grown into um, somewhat of a titan in the underground media space, right? Because at that time there were, you had like Mass Gorilla, Daily Chiefers, Underground Underdogs, UVC, and like anything else was kind of like it was like it wasn't really like popping yet because there were like some other platforms starting out there, but there wasn't a lot. So we pretty much became one of the bigger players, right? One of the players that was actually doing something decent for the scene, right? A lot of the typical platforms were kind of doing the whole paid promotion, not really caring about the underground space, right? They were very like predatory, and we just weren't that. We were definitely a different media platform. We had hosted 2 live shows. We were doing URL shows before they were like super popular. We pretty much cultivated a very loyal following, right, through just internet culture and underground culture and things like that. Well, I eventually left the platform in 2020. Me and the founders got into, not like an argument, but we got into a disagreement. Everybody kind of went their separate ways. Company got sold. So that kind of left me in like a very weird position. So I was like solo Zomb Slays. I had written close to like 70 or 60 articles at that point. And then I knew I had some like brand experience. I had some manager experience. I knew how to like get things started, but I didn't really want to necessarily do that right off the rip. Um, so I took some time off. I think that was like right around like the start of COVID. It was like the very beginning of COVID. And then that year kind of goes by, and then like sort of towards the end of the year, I started doing a podcast on my Twitch channel, which you're watching now, or if you're not, which is where the show is hosted. So the first name was Zomb Slays Music Mondays, because I didn't think like brand wise yet. I wasn't thinking about that yet. I didn't really know what I wanted to do career wise. And I was managing a group of artists at the time, and I was just kind of solo dolo in terms of like actually representing a brand. So this is like mid to end 2020. I start the podcast Zomb Slays Music Mondays, and it's pretty much exactly what it is now, except we didn't really do submissions yet. I was just solo talking about underground politics, media, things like that, giving like tips and tricks. Because like that was the only way I knew how to like actually keep benefiting the space, especially during like such a shitty time, right? COVID and everything like that. Like I love going back and watching some of those episodes, right? Because it's such an archive of like what it used to be, bro. It's crazy. But I actually might go watch some of those tonight. But yeah, like the show started off something like really light. It wasn't too serious. It wasn't very submission filled. It wasn't any of those things. And then eventually I kind of got the idea when I started taking submissions that I was like, this doesn't really work as like a solo thing. Like it kind of could work as a solo thing, but that's not really like what I wanted it to be. So eventually I dropped the Zomb Slays title. And then I was just like, okay, fuck that. And it was just Music Mondays at that point. So we started taking submissions. It was relatively like um it was just like very chill. Like it wasn't anything super serious. We only got like 3 or 4 submissions a night. And then eventually we had launched all of our socials. So I had an extra Twitter account. We switched that over. I made a new IG. I made the TikTok, and then I made the website. And um, our first website was in 2021, and I only had like 2 or 3 other staff members under me. But again, that was one of my homies that I'm not even like really in communication with anymore, and they fell off. They weren't really like with the commitment. They didn't really kind of understand like where we were going with things, so that fell off. That was like mid 2021. So again, I was kind of like left solo with like 2 or 3 staff members, no website, and just a bunch of socials. It's quite literally 2021, and I was like, dude, this is fucked. So I struggled for a bit, and I was like, man, how the fuck am I gonna get a website made with like barely any budget and barely any plugs? So I found a couple plugs. They all kind of fell through. Okay, what do you do now? So I basically learned how to make a website myself. Watched tutorials, troubleshooted things, like did the whole nine. And like I never claimed to be like a web developer or anything like that, but that was something that I just took the bullet and was just like, fuck it, I need to learn this. And eventually I carved out the Music Monday site, because we have a couple versions of it. They're all stored in the archive, but the one that's published now is obviously the current version. But there were so many versions um, before we got to where we're at today. So the website launched, 2021 ends, 2022 it starts getting really crazy. 2022 is where it starts to get like a lot of fucking traction, and we started to tap into like the new underground. We started to tap into like people like Bloodcat, Matt Rocks, King Mark, so many of those artists that were like really pushing their newer sound, and really just like not only having fun but just like being a part of the space, right? And then combine that with like who I had left pre-COVID, right? Because when COVID happened, I feel like that just really fucked everything up. Um, COVID really, really like slammed a lot of this shit when it comes to art and music and things like that. Um, So we kept doing the show, kept recruiting, kept doing, content, kept really pushing the bar when it comes to what we can do at Music Mondays. And we're here, right? 2023, 2022, we had Cyberfest 1. You guys know the deal. I don't have to talk about the specifics when it comes to that. But that's kind of how Music Mondays came about, is because I had a lot of original brain experience before I broke into the scene. I was part of a couple teams before I started this platform. So I kind of had an understanding on what we needed to do, and then as we kept doing it, the vision became more clear. So that's how Music Mondays actually became born. I mean, of course, I could break down smaller details and things like that in like another video or another time. But that's the short form kind of story, right? Um, so it begs the question, right? What's the Music Mondays mission? What is Music Mondays? Well, outside of our bio, you know, we're essentially specialists in every form of underground art. Like when it comes to music, art, fashion, digital media, any kind of content like that, we are a media platform for that. We exclusively cover underground independent content. That's exactly what we specialize in, right? But you'll see us cover more kind of bigger mainstream content from time to time, but not often. Very, very often. I'd say like 8 out of 10 pieces that we publish are like smaller, and then the other two might be a little bit bigger. But we essentially specialize in promoting artists in the way that they deserve to be promoted. We're not a money grab platform. We've never sold anything through the platform. We've never sold playlists, articles, things like that. We are very like honest and transparent platform when it comes to our funding and how we get funded. What you see is exactly how we make our money, right? Obviously, I have the Zomb Slays, or no, Zomb Plays, but I need to change the name. Zomb Plays Twitch channel. We have our YouTube channel, which we're trying to get partnered on. We have our Patreon. We have just a slight other like smaller avenues, and then the rest is just me kind of putting in my cash for Music Mondays. So the thing that like I always kept close to me, right, was knowing that underground independent artists like were people just like you and me who don't have any money, who work regular jobs, who have bills to pay, who have shit going on IRL that they can't spend $100 on a playlist, they can't spend $100 on a beat, they can't spend $100 on a visual or this, that, and a third. Like, and after certain points, you'll be able to do those kinds of things, right? But at first, especially early on, it's really hard, and people need platforms to be able to showcase their shit on for free all the time, 24/7. And that was like a core of how I broke into the scene brand wise, and that's why that's a very crucial part of what we do here at Music Mondays. So that's like the first thing that everybody has to know is that we're a very like transparent platform when it comes to our promotion and things like that. Of course, you can go onto the Patreon and go get deeper forms of promotion, but at a base level, everything is always going to be free. All of our playlists, all of the podcast submissions, you can't pay for an article. None of those things, right? None of those things are ever going to happen on Music Mondays as long as I'm here. That's for sure. Um, so exactly how do we promote artists, right? Um, Obviously I have the experience. I've been in the space for almost 7 years. Built UVC, built up multiple artists. It's like, okay, like where does that kind of lead Music Mondays? And obviously you guys know we specialize in the basic stuff, right? Playlists, articles. But then there's things like audio and YouTube. And then we have short form content. We have other media. Then we have hosting. And then we have URL shows. And then we have kind of you know, IRL shows that will be coming, so it's really about being that platform that people can go to for not only fresh and new independent art, but unheard of shit, but shit that also deserves spotlight, right? Cuz pretty much every other like hip hop or like underground kind of blog is going to, and I hate that term blog. I try not to use that term, but people still use it because we're more of a platform, right? We're not just kind of posting on Tumblr and our website and just writing like these like weird critical interviews. We're way deeper than that. So I don't like to use the term blog, but a lot of these other platforms kind of have a like a really like backwards way of doing it, because a lot of them like claim to be supporting the underground, but a lot of them only cover the same 4 or 5, 6 artists, right? Which is all good and fine, but it's just like that name has gotten watered down over the years in Music Mondays, and a couple of other platforms are, constantly kind of keeping that alive, and what it truly means to be underground. So that's something that's like again very crucial and important in Music Mondays. What makes us different from everybody else, other than the things that I just mentioned? The Music Monday staff team is composed of about 10 plus people, right? And almost all of them, I think we only have 2 people out of like 10 plus that don't make art of their own. We have producers, we have vocalists that are writers, we have producers that are writers, we have designers that are also writers, we have designers that are designers. So a lot of the people that are a part of Music Mondays are also artists themselves. So you're never going to get watered down bullshit from us. You're never going to get ignorant comments from us. You're never going to get fucking shit that looks like it's like bashing artists, or like shit that's like obvious to us but might not be obvious to like a regular audience. Like we don't entertain that kind of media because we're actually in the space. So we have a better understanding of what might rub other artists and people the wrong way. So that's why we do our due diligence and have a lot of gentle care when it comes to how we operate here at Music Mondays internally. That's why it's very important to me that a lot of staff kind of have their own careers, and I kind of push them in the direction that they need to go in, and really show them how to uh, get themselves on their feet, and really use the resources at hand. So the staff is a very crucial part of that. But again, just to cap that off, Music Mondays is a 24/7 underground independent media platform specializing in music, art, fashion, media. Anybody who's an independent artist, anybody who's underground that deserves spotlight, we're there for them. But not in the kind of malicious, weird way that a lot of people usually would be, or a lot of platforms usually would be. So, in short, I could really talk about that all day. That's what Music Mondays is, and that's what we represent. That's what we mean, and that's kind of where we stand in that line of things, right? And really like what we represent. So that'll just be a short YouTube segment. So definitely drop a like on that. And if you're not subscribed, man, I think we're like four subs away from 210. So definitely go show some love to the channel if you haven't already. So yeah, man. That's one of those things where, again, like I said, I could really talk about it like all day. But you know, I got to keep it short and sweet sometimes. I mean, if anybody would want me to like dive into like deeper detail or has any fucking questions, definitely let us know. But as I said, that's this platform is also my career as well, so it's like I love talking about it. You know what I mean? Like I'm always down to talk about it. So, um definitely feel free to ask any kind of questions for sure, for sure. But